What effect does poverty have on crime?
I feel like poverty increases crime rates because in poverty there's more people who are unemployed, there's more gangs, and people just aren't doing the things that they're necessarily supposed to be doing. And because they have like a lack of financial support, they're more likely to use things like drugs and steal from other people.
It changes like the types of crimes that happen, and then also like the reason for crimes. So a lot of times people will like resort to crime as a way to survive, essentially, because it's an easy way to make money in some cases. Whereas wealthier people, or when you see like wealthier crimes, you see less of, oh, I had to do this for money.
Have on crime.
Poverty has a great effect on crime because people that don't have jobs don't have jobs, and that means that they don't have food or housing. And if you don't have those basic needs, then what happens is that you end up creating crimes to get those needs met. Take for instance, if you are someone that doesn't have the basic needs, then you may end up neglecting your child or doing child abuse. You may even get involved in domestic altercations because you're fighting over issues of money.
Does the severity of crimes in impoverished neighborhoods differ from crime in wealthy neighborhoods?
I feel like it definitely does differ from a personal experience. I mean, my city or town is pretty wealthy compared to a lot of other cities in the area, and there's not that many crime rates, there's not that many police around, and you just don't get people doing things that they aren't supposed to be doing. And then in impoverished cities, like around here, Baltimore, DC, which we're all familiar with, there's high crime rates, there's a lot of impoverished people there, and I feel like that's causing it. There's a lot of drug users, lots of shootings in the cities.
I don't know if I would say like severity. I feel like you could argue that like violent crimes are different, but you don't see as much like gang violence in wealthy areas, I suppose. But then severity, I mean, wealthy people commit murder as well, and like when it comes to like petty crimes are more common in like impoverished areas because you do like steal a little bit to survive, or do little things. But I don't know, I wouldn't say like severe.
They do and they don't. The severity of the crimes differs, meaning if you're in a more affluent neighborhood, then you're going to have less robberies, less people walking down the street and being held up by guns or being assaulted with knives. So the more serious crimes happen at a less frequent manner in more affluent homes or areas. Whereas if you are in a more impoverished area, there's something called the broken window technique that police use. And what we do is we try to go into areas where you see if it's a high drug area in an impoverished neighborhood, and if there are people standing on the corner, then you want to engage with those people to try to get them to move along, because generally that's where they're selling drugs. And if you're selling drugs and you're not moving them out of the way, then that means that a drug deal may go bad and someone may get shot, someone may get beat up or stabbed. So I guess to answer your question, yes, in areas where there is less economic growth, then there is going to be more crime because of the fact that people are not at work. Instead of being at work, they're out plotting to do things in order to gain those access to those necessities that they don't have.
How has crime changed over the past few years, and is this change related to poverty in any way?
Crime rates have increased in the past few years, and I feel like it's due to an increased population, but it's an increased population in the impoverished communities. More people are being born every day, so if there's more people in impoverished communities that could be like related to gangs or participating in illegal activities, and it's going to increase the crime rates.
The only thing that I can think of is with like the growth of social media, crimes committed over social media, like crimes committed through social media would be on the rise. But in terms of like poverty and impoverished areas, I feel like since it's so hard to like break the cycle of poverty, people who are born into impoverished families, it's harder for them to get out, so to speak, or get enough money to where they can be in areas that are with less crime. So I feel like that cycle is continuing. I don't think it's much of a change there. Yeah.
It is related to poverty. However, it's actually two parts. It's poverty related, and it's also societal related, in that there's a wide push across the United States, police versus citizenry. Now, with that being said, earlier in the question previously, I mentioned something about the police tactic that we use, the broken window theory, which means if there is a broken down car that's sitting on the corner, there's certain agencies that we call to try to get that removed, because if people feel empowered that their neighborhood looks good, then they tend to do better. Now, since the police and citizenry have been at arms about the way that police are policing, the broken windows theory now has kind of like taken a back burner, because citizens don't want to be approached by police officers to get in order to get them to move along. Remember in the other question where I said if they're on the corner with drugs and things, now police aren't interacting with those people and they're leaving them there, which means that they are still selling the drugs, they're still prostituting, they're doing the things that they normally would do in an impoverished neighborhood, and the police aren't acting on that. And so in the last couple of, I'd say 3 years, homicides across the United States have gone up, robberies, thefts, any type of crimes that are more heinous, they've gone up because it's less policing being done, because the policing is being viewed as unfair. However, when it's being done, the broken windows policy is done, then there's less crime, because criminals, there are 3 things that have to be in place in order for a crime to be committed. It has to be an opportunity, it has to be a place, and it has to be a lack of police presence. So the other 2 are still there, but if with that, all 3 have to exist in order for a crime to happen. You take the police from being out there, and then the crime will happen. So not enforcing the broken windows technique has contributed to the last 2 or 3 years crimes have gone up across the nation.
What is being done to prevent crime in impoverished neighborhoods?
One thing that the police are doing, the police are trying to be more, I like to use the term user-friendly, being more open with the public. There's something called COPS, Community-Oriented Police Services. And those are police that go out to the churches, the rec centers, the schools, and they try to set up things called police athletic leagues, where they're getting the kids in impoverished neighborhoods out playing sports, trying to do things to help the area in which they live in. They may get together with the kids after, say, a basketball event. The next week they may clean up an area. You also have police going into schools and doing something called bridging the gaps. They also do that with adults, and that shows kids, teens, and adults how to interact with the police. Take, for instance, if you were pulled over in a car, would you know what to do? Well, me and a couple of other officers, we are in a group that go out to different schools and churches, and we actually teach people how to interact with police. Like if you're pulled over in a car, when you pull over to the side of the road, turn your wheels toward the curb, because it shows that officer that you're not going to try to pull off on him. So as he's approaching the car, he kind of lets down his guard a little bit. And if it's at nighttime, turn the dome light on in the car, because that way you're telling him, I'm worried about your safety and I want to be safe as well. So that way he can see everything in the car. So it's little things like that, and going out into the community, just helping them to know what we do. And another good thing that we do as Prince George's County, we have something called the Citizens Police Academy, where you can come in and you can actually go through some of the things that we go through. And one of them is shoot, don't shoot, where you're in this big electronic room that's like a video game, and you get an opportunity to see that in a split second you could have to pull your gun and shoot somebody, or you could have been shot in there, and afterwards you have a more realistic understanding of what police go through.